Welcome to this episode of the Righteous Ruckus podcast. I'm your host, Riley Lowe. And this episode, I want to cover a topic that will probably be convicting for most people, including myself, because I fall short plenty of times from time to time on this deal. I want to talk about whether you want to call it curse words, cuss words, swear words, bad words, profanity, whatever flavor you want to call that. That's what we're going to discuss today. So hope you haven't clicked off of this yet, but I want you to stick around.
It's time to get off the church benches and into the trenches. Let's make a righteous ruckus.
Okay, so before we get into the meat of this deal, remember that if you feel led to let us know you're praying, let me know you're thinking about us and or want to support this Righteous Ruckus podcast, you can do that at givesendgo.com/support righteous ruckus. And that will, on that site, you could support us financially if you'd like to, or you could also let us know that you're praying, or you could also send an email. Tell me what you think about this podcast or other podcasts at righteousruckuspodcast@gmail.com. So I encourage you to take advantage of those ways of communicating. Or if you happen to be on our Facebook page or whatever, you can also interact there. So this is a topic I actually was not even thinking about covering this topic. It's just there'd been several instances where stuff has come up and it's stuck out in my mind. And that's kind of how a lot of inspiration comes. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I don't know. I don't know how inspiration comes to most people for things they do, but it's just day-to-day life, whether it's things happening around you or things happening in the environment and the culture, whatever it may be. So let's talk about this. So, I'll be first to say I used to be the world's worst at cussing, right? This was back before I was saved. And that's actually one of the external indicators that somebody could tell that I had been saved, was that my use of profanity went to almost nothing. There's a lot of other indicators, but that was one of the main indicators. And quite honestly, it was day to day. It conversations was F-bombs and every swear word, every cuss word you could think of, I would use on a daily basis in just normal conversations. I'm not talking about, and you'll hear this a lot. And, people think that this is reserved for, blue collar environments or rough environments or whatever the case may be. But this is not the case. You see this in this culture today. The use of profanity is very prevalent in almost every facet of society, including Christian circles, to be honest with you. And that's a sad deal. Generally, I don't see a lot of it in my Christian circles, but I do know there's plenty of Christian circles where it's, somewhat accepted. And it's kind of a crazy deal. I actually had it. This has been a long time ago. I was up visiting somebody in Colorado, and their dad was head over several hospitals. He was like a CEO, president, whatever you want to call it, over several hospitals up there. And at that time, that was kind of an impressive deal to me. At that time, I was like, oh my goodness, this guy. And this is before I was saved, right? And this guy was, very successful financially and everything. But one of the things he didn't cuss, And he actually mentioned it a lot one time. It was quite convicting for me. He brought it up in conversation. He was like, yeah, he goes, there's a lot of people think you got to cuss, blah, blah. He just brought it up casually. And he's like, he's like, there's really no excuse for it. It's unprofessional. There's nothing cool about it or okay about it. It's always hurtful in one way or another, and it's just not a good thing to do, right? It's people think less of you when you do that a lot. That's just the way it is. And I was like, and I even said, and I remember my rebuttal was, I said, yeah, but when you're around it all the time, sometimes it's just hard to not get caught up in that. And he goes, and he looked right at me and he goes, that's no excuse. That's no excuse. You got to have excuse better than that. And I was like, wow. Because when I really thought about it, I was like, he's right. It's not, but, and then once I got saved, like I said, that was one of the telltale signs was and I had to train myself, right? This is not a snap your fingers overnight. This is gone. Like all sin habits, this one, it took time to conquer it. And, I had to, basically I tricked myself or convinced myself to be conscious of when I said that. And once I was actually thinking about keeping track of how often I said cuss words and bad words and stuff, it was all the time. It was when it really jumped out at me, and I was like, oh my goodness. And so anyway, I cut way back on that, and basically cleaned up my mouth pretty quickly. Then I remember it was a couple years after that, actually. I was working a job, and I had this supervisor come down, and there was something was going haywire on what I was working on, right? This guy comes down, and I don't encourage you to do this, with everybody, but I'd been working there long enough to where I could get away with this, I suppose. But he comes down there. This is in an environment in a company that's, no cussing, no foul language. These are the rules, right? Now, everybody breaks those rules, but these are the rules. And this guy comes down, and he's cussing me up one side and down the other. And I hear him coming, just cussing. What in the world? And he just beep, 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 beep. And I was like, and I just knew I could hear him coming behind me. I was like, well, I know he's coming to me because of what's going on. And he got down there, and he was just cussing up a storm. Finally, he goes, are you hearing me? And I turned around, and I said, you talking to me? And he's some more cuss words and said, yeah, I'm talking to you, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm trying to fix this situation. If I'm not your dog. If you want to go talk to your dog like that, you go talk to your dog like that, but don't talk to me like that. Until you can figure out a way to communicate effectively that doesn't include all that, just go think about that and come back and let me know. and basically he just puffed up and stomped off, right? Because he was just mad at the situation. It wasn't like I wasn't doing anything to correct the situation. He was just mad at the situation. But, that basically got him to reconsider his approach. And that happens a lot. But one thing you do notice, and this is something that happens a lot. A lot of people think that their work life and their home life are two different things. I've seen countless men, it's usually men, but I've seen countless men be the most vile, foul-mouthed, whatever, at work, and then you see them outside of work, and their family, their church friends, whatever, thinks they're a complete saint because they act like two different people. They're like a dual life going on there. And really, I just think that takes too much work, honestly, to try to behave one way at work and behave another way at home. But it's very common. It's very common to do that. But I've seen a lot of people, they just cuss like a sailor at work, and then at home whether they're their wives and their families just talk them like they're a saint, and they just act like they're a saint. And that's great. That's fine. That's good that you should act like that around your family, but you should be consistent, right? Either pick one or pick the other. Let's figure out who you are and do that. Now, I would prefer, and I think most people would prefer, especially if your family would prefer it, to not use that kind of language and to be gracious and and if you've got something to say that you're mad about or whatever, there's other ways of saying it. Now, you could say, well, if you're saying a word in substitute for a cuss word, then you're essentially doing the same thing. Well, possibly, right? There's no like black and white on this deal. But let's see what the Bible says about some of this. I actually saw, this was a list of several verses here, which was pretty cool that somebody had taken the time to get these together. And this is just, it's actually a photo, and it says, cussing is a sin. And it says, here starts with Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it might minister grace unto the hearers. And then you got Proverbs 18:21, which is the King James Version here as well. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. That's a pretty big deal there. And then Matthew 12:36, but I say to you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. That's Jesus talking about, saying you're going to be accountable for every word that's come out of your mouth. Matthew 15:11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. That's Jesus again saying, it's not what you're eating, it's not what you're breathing, not what you're drinking. It's even bigger than all that is what you are saying and what you are speaking. Because especially in those days, you're an oath, things were binding, and very, very big. Your testimony was huge back then. It should be big now, but it was really big back then. And then let's look at James 3:5-6. Even so the tongue is a little member and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on the fire of hell. So what it's talking about is your tongue is very, very powerful. Think about what you say and how that affects everything around you. Everything around, and what you think about what other people say, and how that forms your opinion of them, right? And so profanity is usually negative and hurtful. Now there's times, it's not like there's times you can't avoid it. You try to. There's times you can't avoid being around it in that atmosphere. But here's what I would say to you is that almost always, if you're in a culture and an atmosphere that is where cussing and cursing is very, very common, if you don't do it, you will stand out. Stand out in a good way, right? People may call you, oh, you choir boy, whatever. People, they try, okay, you just say, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. Let me know when you're done laughing at me, and we'll continue on, right? That's you're not going to insult me, right? By calling me a Christian, you're not going to insult me. By saying, oh, you're a goody two-shoes, you don't cuss, whatever. You're not going to get under my skin doing that. Okay, you can have fun trying, but you're not going to get under my skin. And the reality is, it's going to help people identify you as a Christian. And these are the people that whenever life is rough, guys, and whenever things get tough, right? Let's say one of these people at work that are cutting up all the time, that are making fun of people all the time, throwing out cuss words all the time. There's nothing wrong with having fun, but when you're people that are being, that kind of, what I'm talking about. When people are like that, and then life hits them, as it often does most people, right? Whether you get a close person that's dying, a close person to them that's gets cancer, someone close, some tragedy, or even just difficulty. You're talking, well, they're going through a divorce, or they're doing this or that. This happens a lot. As a great who do you think they're going to go to? Are they going to go to the people that have been throwing around F-bombs and doing all this and putting off an abrasive personality, right? Are they going to go to those people and say, hey, man, this is what's going on in my life. You got a minute, Or are they going to come to the person that they can see evidence that they're a Christian, and they know that as a Christian you're going to be receptive and probably helpful, and they know they can feel that tugging in their hearts, but if they're not a Christian, that they need that, right? You've got something different. You're standing out. You've got something different. Let me come to you for help. Let me come to you just to vent, just to talk about my problems, right? And that opens so many doors. You can lead people to the Lord doing that. It's just a really great thing. And they know that there's evidence that person that they need to go talk to is you, because one of the big things is your lack of cursing. So here's another verse. Colossians 4:6. Here's what Paul says. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. All right, always be gracious. Whether you're, tell the truth in love. You're saying you've heard that, right? Be gracious, be cordial, be kind, but tell the truth. It's not kind to not tell the truth to somebody, because then you're lying to them, right? That's not kind. And then also look at this. Now here's something interesting that I came across while I was looking up verses for this. Here's in Matthew. We're in Matthew 5, verse 22. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And then here it goes. And whoever says to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Those do not sound like bad things here. Raka basically means you're empty-headed. You got no brains, right? You're dumb. So Jesus is saying here, if you call somebody dumb or call somebody a fool, you're in danger of a hellfire. That seems pretty strict and pretty important. I mean, it's an awful big penalty just for calling somebody a fool or calling somebody empty-headed, right? That's pretty big. And also, here's the thing. Check this. This is in the Beatitudes. So this is in Matthew 5:22, like I said. So this is a section in Matthew where Jesus talks about murder beginning in your heart. He includes talking bad to people in this section about murder beginning in your heart. So to me, take what you want, right? But to me, that makes controlling your tongue a huge deal. And I know it's going to be, trust me, I know it's tough. I've heard Christian apologists that I respect very, very much admit that, hey, sometimes when you stub your toe, there's just, substitutes aren't going to cut it, and you need to just lash out with a 4-letter word. But the thing is about those 4-letter words is they are all actually a 3-letter word, which is sin, right? It's just the way it is. Now, the good news is you repent for that sin, you turn away from that sin, you fight against it. Like I said, when I became a Christian, when I first got saved, I struggled with cursing and profanity because it was such a big habit and such a big part of my life before. And I struggled with that to get that under control. The good thing is every time I failed, every time I consciously did sin, then I was able to ask for forgiveness, right? And actively get away from that. Is there times where I still fail? Yes. Is it common? No, it's not. It's very uncommon. Now, there are other things that I struggle with, like, man, I love telling jokes. And there's the temptation to tell off-color jokes is very, very real. And that's something I'm struggling to try to get a hold of myself. But I know every time you turn the TV on, every time you watch a movie, every time you get around any group of people, you hear just profanity. It's very, very common, right? And here's a C.S. Lewis quote. When the whole world is running towards a cliff, he who is running in the opposite direction appears to have lost his mind. So the whole world is cussing. Everything around you, especially with the internet, at least on TV and the movies, they somewhat restrict that. Of course, you have these premium channels, the HBOs and all that stuff where they can kind of do whatever they want. They skirted around the rules there, and even what little rules that there are left. But with all the streaming stuff and the internet and everything, it's just like I can't open up Facebook without seeing some cuss words. That's the reality. But the good thing is, people know that when they see something that's posted on there or on social media or wherever, a text message, a conversation with Riley, they know that there will be no profanity involved. It's just the reality of it. So they don't have to go, oh, well, that's kind of I don't know if I want to talk to Riley or read what Riley wrote or whatever. They don't have to worry about, I hate to, is he going to be cussing? Is he going to not? How bad is he going to be cussing? Is it something I can listen to around my kids or have on my phone reading whenever my kids are around? Yes. You can listen to all that and read all that. You don't got to worry about your little kids, right? And that's one of the reasons why we actually here recently we had to, our daughter, we stream all our TV, right? And we have a YouTube on our TV, and it got so prevalent recently where our daughters were looking at, like, they'd be watching like Superbook and the Beginner's Bibles, that sort of thing. And it doesn't take long of watching some videos, and it gets into either ads or videos that use God's name in vain, that use cuss words, that have all this stuff. She was recently, she didn't even know, she really doesn't know cuss words. But she started saying, and it was basically a condensed version of what the F, right? And it wasn't the whole word. It wasn't the whole F word. It was a condensed version of it, but it was enough to where it was getting by any sort of censorship, and it was getting right to my daughter's brain to where she thought it was something fun to say. I mean, and this is not like we don't monitor this stuff, guys. It's not like she's just off doing whatever with a phone or this is stuff that we monitor pretty close. And it had infiltrated, right? It's everywhere. You have to constantly be on the lookout for that. But we've that's one of the reasons why we, very much restricted that now. We've got other versions, Christian things that she can read. She goes to a Christian school. We go to church. Awana's is getting ready to start up. She can do memory verses and everything, and plus the environment here at the house, where, quite frankly, she doesn't hear cuss words on a regular basis, and she doesn't know. She's still got that innocence, right? She doesn't know what cuss words are, so kind of have to explain to her when something is a bad word. And I think that's a good thing to be at. She's 6 years old, fixing to be 7. To be at a point at that age where you can call it sheltered, you can call it whatever. I call it, where we're leading her in the right direction is what I call it. But the good thing is she doesn't have to worry about that. But I would encourage you, if it's something you struggle with, it's something a lot of people struggle with, is cussing, guys. And basically, you're taking longer to say something that you could say shorter. That's the reality. And I'm going to close with this. This is a guy called Gordon B. Hinckley. All right. This was in 1987. He said this. The man, and this is the way I feel about foul language a lot of times. The man or the boy who must resort to foul language immediately says that he is poverty-ridden in his vocabulary. He does not enjoy sufficient richness of expression to be able to speak effectively without swearing or using cuss words. Basically, he's saying cuss words make you sound dumb. You know, they do. I completely agree that the more you cuss, the less intelligent you sound. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know. You can be very intelligent and still use cuss words, but that's the perception I think that gives off, is that the more you cuss, the less intelligent you are. That's the persona there. So anyway, I hope this has been an inspiration to you. I know it's not a fun topic to talk about, but I think it just needs to be talked about, especially in the culture that we're in. Anyway, so I hope that's helped you. I hope that's blessed you today to think about that and be cognizant of what's going on and what's coming out of your mouth, because it carries a lot of weight according to Jesus and according to a lot of other scripture. What you're saying carries a vast amount of weight. So I hope that's helped you. I hope this hasn't been too boring and drawn out. And until next time,